Greetings, Benjamin J. from Ben's Trains with another in the series. Well, it's about 11 o'clock on Friday night and trying to stay sane, so I needed some kind of project for this evening. So, what I have done, if you remember, I got that new motor for that Lionel 8200 switcher. Got an AC motor and put it in the 8200 shell, which freed up the 8200 motor. So, I had the motor. So I have modified it and I have mounted it somewhat roughly in a Lionel 1060 shell, as you see. Now, the Lionel 1060, the motor mounts with a pin that goes through the shell, through the motor, and out the other side. And I did not have a pin. I tried to use a Mark's axle, but it was too small. It just wouldn't stay in there. So what I've done, as you see, is I have mounted the motor with a wire tie that goes all the way through the motor, around the shell, and is anchored at the top. I cobbled together some push rods for it, as you see. Now, there is no drawbar on it yet, so I've got the tender mounted, as you can see, with a wire tie for now. Anyway, put a crossbar in it, and this does run. This is going to be its first trip on the rail, or first trip around the rail, and so I wanted to document this. So I got a tender mounted with a wire tie and 4 Lionel cars. I have christened this the Corona Express. So the only way I can think of to stay sane is to stay busy. So I will have my breakdown some other time. Anyway, the Lionel 8200 DC motor. I mounted a diode on that DC motor so it'll run on AC. And I've got it cobbled into this Lionel 1060 shell. Now this shell has been under the bench for months. And as you see, it has some kind of sticker on the top that is just absolutely impossible to remove. And the pilot, of course, is broken off. So it was just a junk shell. But trying to find something to stay busy, so I've cobbled this thing together. And its first trip around the rail. So let's turn the power on. Let's see how this goes. The Lionel Corona Express. Wow. Well, as you see, that runs absolutely splendidly. It has red wheels on it, but oh well. It has push rods. It's mounted in there. The motor's mounted with a wire tie. There is no drawbar, so I've got the tender connected to the locomotive with a wire tie. And that's running at 40% power, pulling 5 Lionel cars. So, this just reinforces everything I say. Don't overlook the junk. Just because something's junk when you get it, doesn't mean it's going to be junk when you're finished with it. An old Lionel 1060 shell, the DC motor out of a Lionel 8200 in the wrong shell with the wrong push rods, with the shell mounted with a wire tie, and as you see, it is up and running. Not only running, it's running absolutely splendidly. Let's take this up. There's 50% power, pulling 5 cars. As you see, that is running just absolutely perfectly, and this is made completely out of junk. If you look up junk locomotive in the dictionary, there's a picture of this. So the motor's mounted in there with a wire tie for now. I'm going to have to fabricate some kind of pin. I do not have one. At least I don't think I do. But like I said, it's Friday night, so I wanted to find something to keep myself busy. And this was the result. This is actually running quite well. So I could spray this with black paint, and I've got to find a pin to go through there. Now, that's one thing about the Lionel motors. Most of them are interchangeable, that being a relative term. This one, of course, does have a slot that lines up with that hole in the shell. So like I said, I just put a wire tie through it for now. I've got to come up with some kind of pin, or perhaps 2 screws that meet in the center, one from either side to hold that motor in. It does have a front crossbar on it, a front mounting bar on it. Not the correct one, but it has one. And I've got to figure out a drawbar for it. I've just got the tender right now mounted with a wire tie, as you can see, directly to the shell itself. But it is up and running. So the Lionel Corona Express. So I will find some way to get this finished. I'll make a pin for it, and I will keep this strictly as a souvenir of the Great Exile. Now this is just absolutely cobbled together, but as you see, it is a complete locomotive, and it is actually running really, really well. Like I said, it has red wheels on it, but oh well. So I've just got to figure out a cross pin to go through that shell to lock that motor in there. A bit of judicious tweaking, and I have a new locomotive made completely out of junk that kept me sane. So like I said, I'll keep this one as a souvenir. The Lionel Corona Express, up and running. And not only running, this is running absolutely splendidly, as you can see. So that Lionel 8200 switcher DC motor with a diode on it, so I can run it on AC. So all I've got to do now to actually finalize this is come up with a cross pin that'll go through that hole and mount that motor in there. And of course I do have to come up with a drawbar for it. But as you see, that is running just absolutely splendidly. And that wire tie holding the motor in is virtually invisible because it's black. It's running smooth. It actually runs really, really well. You can see that wire tie going through there. So I've got to come up with a pin of some kind. I'll have to fabricate something. And a drawbar, of course. But anyway, that 8200 switcher motor is mounted in there. Put some modified push rods on it, as you see. And made completely out of junk, but it's actually running really, really well. Surprisingly well, in fact. So I just wanted to do a quick video to document this. As I always stress, don't overlook the junk. I mean, this thing is assembled completely out of junk parts. And as you see, that locomotive is running just absolutely perfectly. It's quiet, it's smooth. Obviously, it has more than enough power. It's pulling 5 cars with no problem at all. And the motor's held in with a wire tie. So, got to come up with a cross pin and a drawbar. So, anyway, it was just a project to keep me from going insane, and it worked. The Lionel Corona Express, like I said, I'll get this finished and keep it as a souvenir of the Great Exile. But that's running much better than I anticipated. I didn't even know if I could get that motor in there. And yet there it is. Push rods mounted on it and running just absolutely splendidly. Like I said, it's got bright red wheels, but oh well. So this will be my souvenir. The Lionel Corona Express. So I just want to do a quick video on this. I'll get this finalized and do a follow-up video. I'll have to fabricate a pin out of something. I don't know what yet, but I'll find something to tap through there. Figure out a drawbar for it. And I have a new locomotive. And this one's actually going to be quite special because it kept me from going insane. Now, as you see, that is running just absolutely splendidly. Much better than I anticipated. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video on this. Again, I gotta say it, don't overlook the junk. This shell has been under the layout table for months. You know, it's beyond repair. It's got this sticker on top that is never ever gonna come off. I've already tried. The pilot is completely broken off, but I cobbled it together, put that motor in it, got the motor mounted with a wire tie. So if I can come up with a cross pin and a drawbar, I have a complete and running locomotive. Far from perfect, but like I said, it was just a project to keep me from going absolutely insane. So, just wanted to do a video on this. The Lionel Corona Express is up and running. So just a quick video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.